and Palestinians. Both are at the table in the discussions, and the details look an awful lot like what the Bible tells us is coming that will start the final 7 years. There's also talks of a major attack by Iran that, if executed, would lead to a world war. We'll talk about all this and more today on the Endtime Show. Welcome to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. We're so happy you've joined us today. We're taking your calls. The number to join us is 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. Before we get into today's show, I want to remind you that First Cup Coffee is a Christian-owned Patriot coffee company that we love so much here at Endtime Ministries, and they're right here out of the great state of Texas, just like us. They've got 11 different roasts, each one named after a specific piece of American history. You can get one of those roasts, ground, whole bean, or even pods for your Keurig machine. Go to firstcup.com, use code ENDTIME to get 10% off. If you subscribe, they're going to give you another 10% off. Firstcup.com, use code ENDTIME to get 10% off today. All right, Doug, secret peace talks.
Yeah, very
that's
interesting.
Exciting.
It's very exciting. We've heard a little bit about this. They've been talking about, we've heard President Biden say that they have gotten irritated with the response from Benjamin Netanyahu, and they blame a lot of what's happening right now in Gaza on Netanyahu, saying that, if he would just go ahead and back off of the war that they're fighting there, that they could get started on a peace deal and all this. They want that war to end so that they can start talking about this peace deal. But we've heard those things kind of come out in public. But today, I found an article in Newsweek that is, it's really, Vince, like you said in the introduction, it's laying out the final 7 years according to what we know and what we've been teaching in Bible prophecy for over 30 years. Started by Irvin Baxter many, many years ago when where, the Lord just was showing him so many different things, and he began to teach on it, and then here we are, some 30 years later, and we're starting to see all these pieces begin to fall in place. And I was talking to Dave this morning about this article and some of the other ones that we'll be talking about today. And one of the things he said was, man, I wish Brother Baxter was here, because, man, he would be jumping up and down right now. So a lot of really interesting things are talked about in this article. And so I wanted to pull in, like I said, it comes from Newsweek, and it was actually 2 days ago that they put this out. So those secret talks are underway. And the thing about it, Vince, a lot of people ask us, well, why isn't the Abraham Accords the peace agreement? Why wasn't that the peace agreement? Well, there was a very important element missing from that, right? It was the Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement. Those two peoples that share the borders of Israel have to come to that table. That's what we've seen in the Daniel 9:27. For years, we've talked about that. There's going to be a two-state solution. These two people are the ones that have to be involved in this, and that's why we got excited about the Abraham Accords, but we didn't say, okay, this is it. Now, something like this, what we're going to talk about today, if this were to come to fruition here, this would be what we're talking about. This would be the peace agreement that we've been talking about.
Now, we're going to go over all these details, but we're telling everybody right up front, the Israelis and the Palestinians are at the table discussing this. That's correct, right?
That's correct.
So there's going to be people who hear all this, and I don't want you to answer this question yet, but they're going to ask the question, have the final 7 years began? And that's what we're posing today. We're going to look at all this and tell everybody. There's some people who believe that it began a few years ago, and that the Pope signed a 7-year deal.
All right.
So let's get that out of the way up front. Was that the final 7 years or no?
Well, no, that wasn't the final 7 years. They were believing that the paper, and I can't remember the encyclical, what it was called, what he wrote about, but it was basically what he was doing.
They'll let us know in the comments, guarantee.
Yeah, I guarantee they will. And he was lining up what the church believed according to the one world government and the UN's green policies and the sustainable development for 2030, which we talked about yesterday in that article we read yesterday. They talked about how the EU and the Vatican and especially the Holy See lined up, and they agreed step by step for these things, and that was one of the things, is the climate agreement and things that were sustainable development of 2030. So had that started when they said, well, then the final 7 years would end in 2030. Well, it hasn't started. That final 7 years has not started. And this article really gets you excited to see the pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place. And now we've seen things like this before, Vince, where Israelis and Palestinians have come to the table. But we'll kind of talk about how this particular article and the things they're talking about fall in line with Scripture. So we're going to read a little bit of the article, then we're going to show you where we see it in Scripture of how this kind of jives up with what we've been teaching.
Plus, wouldn't the rapture have to happen already?
A lot of people would believe that, yeah. So a lot of people would think, well, we're not even going to be here. Of course, everyone probably knows at this point that we teach a post-tribulation rapture, and that's based on Matthew 24, 29 through 31 mainly, but there are a lot of scriptures that back up that understanding. But Jesus said immediately after the tribulation of those days is when he would gather his elect. So,
and that peace treaty happened 7 years prior to that.
That's right, yeah.
So what we're talking about today, these secret peace talks, how they connect to this potential launching of the final 7 years, and even how this sixth trumpet war comes into play. Do you feel like that, like if you could make it mandatory for every person in the world to know about today's subject, would you do it, or is it not really one of those topics?
No, I mean, everybody needs to understand how important this is, because, Vince, if people don't start to understand this final 7 years is going to start, and they're not going to have a clue that we're already in it. They're not going to have a clue when the middle of that last 7 years starts, and we know that after the Abomination of Desolation, that's when the mark of the beast will be given out. And we want people to understand the signs of the times that we're living in, and so it's very important that they know this.
All right, well, you heard the gurus say it. It's very important for everyone in the world to know about what we're talking about. So we need your help. Stop what you're doing. Hit the share button. Your friends and family need to hear about today's topic. Share the video. Comment, heart instead of do the thumbs up. That helps us out a lot. We need all the help we can get in a number of different ways. We already know that, but we need all the help we can get in getting the word out. So please share this video. I'm thinking about all the people that you're connected to that may never hear about this unless you do it. So please do that now. Also, there's a little something special on our background today, Doug. I'm not going to tell anybody what it is, but I'd like for you, we've got 4 or 5 different camera angles. I don't know how many there are, but you see it switching around throughout the show. Look in the background and see if you see anything interesting. If you find it, comment what you think it is. So, unfortunately for all you radio people out there, you won't be able to do that unless you join us online, but do that today. And I'd love to see what you think is so special about the background. It's kind of like a Where's Waldo, Doug? Maybe Waldo's in there.
Maybe so.
All right. Well, you'll have to look and find out. All right, Doug. So, Secret Peace Talks, what do we need to know about this story specifically?
Well, there's a lot of different things in this story. So that's why, normally here lately we've just been kind of giving you bits and pieces. I still did that, but I put the important pieces together. So this is all... even though some of this may be a little lengthy in read, it's very important that we get this information out so that they know what we're looking at and why we're talking about it. So this first paragraph, Vince, is important for everybody to understand. So you want to read it, or you want me to read it, or you want to do
I'll do whatever you say, Doug. I'm your
today?
wingman.
All right. Well, go ahead. I'll let you read it.
All right.
You read so much better than me.
It says, first of all, it's from Newsweek.com. Like you said, the title of the article is Secret Peace Talks Are Underway for Israelis and Palestinians. Here's what's on the table. Starts by saying we'd like to share a framework constructed in recent weeks by a group of experts, both from Israel and from the Palestinian side, with the participation of Western parties, most but not all former officials, and some but not all veterans of past peace efforts. Does that mean that Jared Kushner's there?
It could mean that. We don't know exactly, but it did in other articles that I've read about this. It talked about possibly members from the quartet, the original quartet that worked on the peace agreement. So,
all right. It goes on to say, for now, to avoid harming a very delicate process, their identities must remain confidential. I guess I should have kept reading. Everyone's confidential. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. This proposal is not another think tank exercise, but rather one that we believe will soon be formally adopted in one way or another and we assess that it will be acceptable to the Israeli government that follows Netanyahu's odious assemblage, which is on life support. It aligns with the groundwork already being done by the Americans and Europeans among key regional stakeholders.
Stop right there for just a second, because I want to talk about that.
That is a key word.
That word stakeholder is kind of a big deal, because just a couple of months ago, we had the Arab stakeholders go before the UN to talk about trying to get some type of peace deal worked up between Israel and Hamas to get it settled before they moved into Gaza, remember? And they did not bring any Palestinians to the table or Israelis to that meeting.
Okay.
Then later, the UN Security Council came in a bigger group and began to discuss what these stakeholders talked about. Now, remember what a stakeholder is. It's somebody that has stake in this situation. So these guys, these are Arab members of the ones that have signed on with the peace treaties, and Saudi Arabia led that. So they are considering themselves a stakeholder. So Saudi Arabia is involved in this as well, okay? But that stakeholder thing is very important, because these people are believing that bringing normalization with Israel, that they are now, they're like part of, they own stake in a company, and it's the same thing. They own stake in Israel now. And so they want to see Israel prosper where before they wanted to see Israel destroyed. Okay, so now we're looking at a different mindset. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking that, these stakeholders, these regional stakeholders is what they're called, along with the world leaders like from the United Nations, I mean, they are condemning Israel for their action. They are anti-Israel a lot of times. And then they also want to have a hand in all this, Doug. And I'm looking at this thinking about what's coming on down the road.
Right.
So we know that the world government is going to form an army, and it's going to come against Israel at some point.
Right.
Now, that's the Battle of Armageddon, which we're not talking about today, but I can see kind of the groundwork being laid that's going to lead to something like that. And it also makes me think about how I think it was yesterday, the U.S. House Intel Chair Turner, he warns of serious national security threat regarding Russia, which is interesting timing, Doug, with the Tucker Carlson interview and everything that he and Putin had to say, and now we're saying there's an international security threat.
Right.
Well, we know that with something like that, supply chain issues could arise amidst these current crises, and food supplies could diminish. So our friends over at Ready Pantry, they are helping you with that. Go to readypantry.com/endtime to get an affordable 3-month emergency supply of food. They offer amazing 25-year shelf-stable food and includes meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Not to mention, you get the peace of mind to know that you have an emergency supply of food ready for anything from power outages to some crazy war to who knows what else might come. Ready Pantry is an American-based company with all products sourced here in America, and they're offering discounts of up to 20% off for 3 to 12 month supplies. So go to readypantry.com/endtime, use code endtime, and save an additional 10% off your order today. Plus, you're going to get free shipping on all orders. readypantry.com/endtime. All right, Doug, so on this peace treaty that's coming that will begin the final 7 years, there's 5 key elements. Are we going to go into all 5 of those? Are we going to talk about any of them at all? Or
we're going to talk about some of them today. We're not going to go into all 5 of them, but we are going to talk about some of them because they're very important to what this article is talking about as well. And
so the Bible tells us there's going to be 5 aspects of that, and we're going to tell everybody what some of those are today.
Yeah.
All right, where do we go from here on this information?
Okay, so just look at all of the people that are involved. So we've got the United States, we've got Europe, we've got these other regional stakeholders. We've got Israel, we've got the Palestinians, the 2 most important peoples at that table, but we've got all these other people. Now remember, we look in Daniel 9:27, Vince, and it tells us in Daniel 9:27 that he shall confirm a covenant with many. Okay, the he there is talking about the Antichrist, and I'm just giving you parts of this today because most people have followed us well enough to understand that we talk about this a lot. And so if you need evidence of that, you can go back and look at some of our past programs at endtime.com, and you can see where we've talked about the Antichrist. The he here is the Antichrist, and it says that he'll confirm the covenant. The covenant there is Israel's right to exist. It's the Abrahamic covenant that God made with Abraham back in the book of Genesis, where God told Abraham that the land would be his from Egypt to the great river Euphrates. And so it's Israel's right to exist there as a nation that they're talking about. That's why it's important that we have Israel and the Palestinians at the table, because those two are the ones that's in dispute over the land, okay? So that's why we look at that, and the many are being brought to the table right now. We're watching many be involved in this. Same thing as we got excited about with the Abraham Accords. Now we see they're working in secret on this peace agreement with both Israel and the Palestinians for the first time here in a while. And so that's why that prophecy, I just give you that little part, because the Antichrist, think about this, Vince, the Antichrist could be, and I think he probably is in these talks, or at least has a representative in those talks. So we don't know who the Antichrist is yet, but we know that he's at work on this, and he could be actually in these meetings, okay? So that's something to wrap your mind around right now. But the article goes on there after this. I want to read this part here too.
Well, and they're keeping it confidential, so if the Antichrist is in those meetings, they're keeping his name under wraps.
Absolutely, yeah.
Makes me wonder if they know what they're doing.
It does make you wonder. Yeah. Okay.
Where to, Doug? Sorry.
Okay, let's move on there under the proposed framework.
Yeah, so Saudi Arabia and other holdout countries would become full partners, and so they would become stakeholders. Is that what they're saying, essentially? Right.
They'd be full partners. So that means they would sign a normalization with Israel and become their peace partner as well. Saudi Arabia, the big one. Remember, that was about to happen right before Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th of 2023.
So it's interesting that they say they're keeping them confidential, and then they talk about Saudi Arabia. So they're just keeping the individuals confidential, but they're throwing out countries that are involved.
Right.
Which seems odd to me, because I think we could kind of narrow down who would be involved, at least from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
doesn't seem very fair.
Right. It's very interesting that they're keeping some names confidential, and I think you probably hit the nail on the head whenever you said that.
Well, so, you think they know the Antichrist is there, and they're
I don't think that they know that, but I think that there are certain people that are saying, hey, let's leave my name out of this for right now, because I don't want it to be an interference. Because, I mean, I start thinking about Tony Blair. I start thinking about all kinds of people that we know have worked on this before.
Well, and throw some names out there, Doug.
Well,
who do you think
I don't want to do that,
because
then we'll start our old status quo thing up again. So let's not.
Oh, you think Joe Biden's there, huh?
Well, somebody is representing that old codger. Anyway, let's move on.
Well, hey, how about this? Who do you think might be there? That, like we said, they're keeping them confidential. Doug seems to think he might know some people that are there. Who do you think are there? Put it in the comments. You think Tony Blair? You think Emmanuel Macron? You think Hillary Clinton? I don't know, Doug.
You're naming names.
Who all might be there? Put it in the comments. Who you think? Remember, we've got elections coming in Taiwan. We've got North Korea on the brink of war. Iran is increasing its aggression, which we're going to talk about here momentarily. This attack from Iran being talked about could literally lead to a world war. And there's a lot of other global instability as we ourselves plunge into this primary season. And of course, there's been mass shootings. And I saw today that the shooter in Kansas City, Doug, was an illegal alien that has just recently crossed the border and maybe tied to this bombing that happened in Fort Worth. But we'll maybe talk about that later. That's not what we're talking about today. How have you sheltered your savings and investments from potential major setbacks to the American economy? It's not too late to diversify an old IRA or 401k into gold, and Birch Gold Group can help you with that. As opposed to many other investments, gold thrives in times of uncertainty, and it's an important part of diversifying your savings. Here's how Birch Gold can help make it a part of yours. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, and it doesn't cost you a penny out of your pocket. Just visit birchgold.com/endtime for a free info kit. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of happy customers, I encourage you to arm yourself with the knowledge of a diversification through precious metals. Visit birchgold.com/endtime. Claim your free info kit and protect your savings with gold today, and pray about what's best for you and your family. All right, Doug, this story goes on to say that Israel would agree up front to recognize in principle a demilitarized Palestine whose borders would constitute an area equivalent to the size of the West Bank and Gaza. Mm-hmm. This is why the proposal does not call for an immediate pullout, but a phased one. And it stipulates that the Palestinian state will be demilitarized and will not have rogue militants, and that this security arrangement will be overseen for a time by outside powers, including an Arab force.
Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago when Israel showed that they had 3 different phases or 4 different phases. I can't remember now. But this was step 1 of that phase, is to begin a pullout of Gaza, but to allow a international security force there, possibly, and it would include Arabs as well. So we've always known by looking at what we understood about the scriptures that pertain to the sharing arrangement and all these things with the 2-state solution, that there would have to be an international peacekeeping force there of somehow that didn't really have stake in the Temple Mount and the holy places. So it's just something that we need to think about there. I put in, the international security force with a question mark, because I'm going, okay, could this be a UN type of force or an EU type force? Remember, yesterday we talked about how the EU said they now need to possess an atom bomb and have a very strong military. So things that they're talking about, the EU is very much involved in this. Mm-hmm. So in the 2-state solution, the way we come up with that, so we understand this is going to be a 2-state solution. They're talking about giving them the very area that we're about to read about from Matthew 24. And this is why, Vince, we've always taught that we believe there would be a 2-state solution. Because when the Abomination of Desolation happens halfway into the final 7 years, halfway into that peace treaty, we know that abomination of tribulation, it causes something to spark. And the Bible tells us that something is called the Great Tribulation. Now, Matthew 24:15 tells us where that area will happen in. So it says, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whosoever readeth, let him understand, and let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains." So Judea is that West Bank area that they're talking about for this Palestinian state, as well as Gaza. So it would be a 2-state solution, Israel being the main state, but Palestine would have their areas in. Now, Doug, Judea would be the biggest part.
Quick question on that.
Yeah.
Let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. So this is where the Jews begin being attacked. Mm-hmm. And this is part of our Warn the Jews campaign. It's part of another Jewish Holocaust, what we talked about for several years now. You can learn more about it at warnthejews.com. We see this happening in the New Testament. We know that the Jews do not read this. And I don't think there's anyone else trying to warn the Jews that this is coming. Most people believe that we will be raptured out of here before this occurs. So we've just come to the conclusion that apparently they don't feel like it's a big deal. We don't really know why no one else is talking about it, but the Bible seems clear that these Jews need to be warned. And so that's why we started the Warn the Jews campaign, because not only do we want to see them avoid this the slaughter that's going to happen, but we also want to see them grow in discipleship, and hopefully we can make connections with them to help guide them in that way. And so go to warnthejews.com if you'd like to participate in that effort to help warn the Jews. And Doug, so when this abomination of desolation occurs, does that happen immediately where this onslaught begins, or is it 3.5 years later? Because something you said there made me think that you might be saying that this doesn't really start until 3.5 years.
No, 3.5 years into the final 7 years is when the abomination of desolation takes place. The Bible tells us that halfway into that week that the Antichrist will break that covenant with Israel. He'll stop the animal sacrifices. He'll set up the abomination of desolation. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, 3, and 4 kind of tell us what that looks like. It's where he stands on the Temple Mount, in the temple, a rebuilt temple, declaring that he's God. Also, Daniel 11, 31 and 36 tell us that same thing. So it lets us know that that is definitely talking about the Antichrist. So when he does this, he's going to make this deal with them for 7 years, and then he's going to break it halfway through it. And that's how we understand also that the tribulation is a 3.5-year tribulation and not a 7-year
But
tribulation.
the Jews don't start getting attacked immediately. There's going to be about 3.5 years.
Well,
is that what we're saying?
Yeah, so into that peace agreement, so there's going to be peace for 3.5 years, or at least it's going to appear to be peace.
So that's what gives us the alarm to say, hey, we got to go tell them.
That's right.
Because 3.5 years, as you and I know, it's no time.
Right, flies by.
Flies by.
Yeah.
3.5 years at one point in my life felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
I couldn't graduate high school soon enough.
Yeah.
But now it's like I've got a son turning 6 on Monday, Doug.
Yeah.
By the way,
It's crazy.
this is my last day on the show before that, so he's sick right now. It's terrible. His fever last night was 104. Happy birthday, Brady. Coming up on Monday. Should have done a photo of him.
Happy birthday,
But
Brady.
next time.
Our Brady boy.
Yes, and he's so sick. It's so sad to see. So pray for my whole family, y'all. My kids are sick. My wife is sick. We are having, maybe it's fluvid. I don't know. I heard about fluvid right before the show.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
So pray for my family.
Yeah.
But anyway, 3.5 years flies by, Doug. So we're not going to have a lot of time. And there's a lot to do to warn these Jews.
That's
so
right.
just want to make sure to get clarity on that so everyone really knows what's going on there.
Yeah, totally understand. So this goes on to talk about in the framework, it also allows provisions to allow settlers living far from the 1967 borders to remain in Palestine if they wish to do so under the Palestinian sovereignty. So that's what we've talked about before. The settlers that are living in those areas of Judea, which they consider, some of them are considered war criminals because of the resolution at the UN 2334, where it's saying that they are guilty of war crimes for living in those settlements. But they're saying under this peace agreement that they would be able to live in that land under the sovereignty of the Palestinian government, something we have been saying for years now on here. And that Jerusalem is already at advanced stages of this process. But I want to talk to you a little bit when we come back about the Geneva Initiative and how that kind of plays into what they're doing here with that.
And maybe we'll reveal what's so special about the background on the other side of the break, too. So stick around for that. Open lines at 877 Endtime. Give us a call.
A voice spoke to me and said, I've got something I want to show you. I was so sure God had talked to me. And I was stunned by what I saw.
A direct fulfillment of this over 2,500-year-old prophecy. The United States will stand with Israel.
Why haven't I ever seen this before?
1/3 of humanity will die. What do these beasts symbolize?
The lion, the bear, the leopard.
The combined beast from Revelation 13 represents the end-time government of the Antichrist. Understanding the end time.
Now streaming on Endtime Plus and available to order at endtime.com/UET. Go to endtime.com/UET or call 800-ENDTIME.
What if you could understand Bible prophecy? Dave Robbins, the host of the Endtime Show's TV and radio programs, is holding a free prophecy conference near you. Gain peace and understanding about what the Bible says concerning end-time prophecy. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com/events to see when Dave will be in a location near you.
Welcome back to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. Open lines at 877 Endtime, 877-363-8463. Dave and Jana Robbins will be in Gainesville, Florida on March 2nd and March 3rd. It's going to be a great time. Dave's going to be preaching a brand new prophecy lesson called The Green Horseman in World War III. Definitely something that everyone needs to hear about. So if you're in the Gainesville, Florida area, please make plans to come out and meet Dave and Jana Robbins, hear some prophecy teaching, and connect with a local body of believers who's looking at a lot of this stuff the way that we are here at End Time. It's going to be a great time. So do that. Go to endtime.com/events or give us a call at 800 End Time. We'll be happy to help you out with information for that specific conference in Gainesville, Florida. All right, Doug, are we ready to talk about the background, or do we have more to cover before we go to the phones?
Oh, we have a ton to cover.
I know. We could go an extra hour on End Time Plus
we really
if we wanted
could today. We could.
Nobody wants that, though, Doug. When we ask, everyone says, no, we don't want the extra hour.
Wow. That's the opposite of what I thought they were saying.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Well, let us know what you think in the comments if you want that extra hour or not. The background, Doug.
Yeah.
The third temple has not been built, right?
Right.
But we kind of threw that on there right above my thumb here.
Yeah.
It's in there with the Dome of the Rock. It's on the Temple Mount. So that would be kind of what the third temple will look like. It's going to be something similar to that.
Yeah.
When it is built. Is that correct?
Well, we're believing from Revelation chapter 11, verse 1 and 2, which we're getting ready to talk about, that there will be a sharing arrangement on the Temple Mount. So if you can see that picture, if you're watching right now, you can see just north of the Dome of the Rock, we've inlaid the temple there. Our production guys have been able to do that. Oh,
I feel like a weatherman.
Like the weather person.
So you can see
back.
That's about,
I'm sorry. So that's about where that would be if this prophecy comes to pass. So it's very interesting. Well, when this prophecy comes to pass.
Okay.
So let's look at just quickly here before we move on to the next part. It's known as the Geneva Initiative. The principles were included to recognize Israel's or Jerusalem's Jewish neighborhoods as Israel's capital, and recognition of the Arab neighborhoods as the Palestinian capital, and a demilitarized Palestinian state. So this is something that they've taken from, and this is one of the things that the Battle of Armageddon is going to be over, Vince, because right now they're talking about a shared area there. But what Israel has always said is that Israel cannot give up Jerusalem as their capital. That's their eternal capital. Remember, President Trump went there and said, he put our embassy there. He was the first president to ever do that after so many had promised that they would do that as soon as they got elected. He came through on his promise. He said, let's just take the capital of Israel off the table. It's the Jewish capital. It's the eternal capital of Israel. That's what God says too, that it would write his name there. Some 37 times he says this in the Old Testament. But that's what the Battle of Armageddon will be over, because the Palestinians want that as their capital. So right now they're saying what they would do is these two joint neighborhoods come into the same area. If you've ever been on a tour with us in Israel or ever been to Israel at all, you've been to the Old City, you've seen how there are parts of it where you see the Palestinian shops, parts of it where you see the Israeli shops. And so they're talking about those two kind of intertwining there and eventually becoming states. Now, it says that this has been a hard nut to crack in the recent years because of the holy sites there on the Temple Mount, both for Israel and both for the Palestinians or the Muslims as well. But it says the old city will remain with Israel and have accessibility to all believers of all faiths. Now remember, that's also what the Abraham Accords included, that everyone would be able to worship there with respect to other religions. So very important that we see that. Of course, I just mentioned Revelation 11, 1 and 2, where it talks about measuring the temple, the worshipers, and the altar, but not to worship the outer court, for it would be given to the Gentiles, and they were trotting it down for 3.5 years. That's what we're talking about here, a sharing arrangement there, and they're talking about the very same thing, sharing that area, but allowing everyone from all faiths to worship there at those holy places. So that's in this proposal. So, and there are Arabs that are saying, yeah, this will work, let's do it. So it's in the proposal. How incredible was that right there just to even think about? So then it says that the Palestinian state will have to develop and reform its institutions over a transitional period of up to 5 years. Now that's interesting because we know the final 7 years will be what they have before Israel is going to be attacked by the nations of the world. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that they throw out 5 years because it may be a 5-year plan to them, but God says it's going to take 7 years to get there. Okay, so very interesting. And that's the rest of Daniel 9:27 that you see where it tells us the whole thing that we talked about before with the abomination and desolation and stopping the animal sacrifices halfway into that final 7 years. So those things that are mentioned in there are just, to me, amazing. The article goes on to talk about the European Union and how they're collaborating with Israel and the Palestinians and the Arab partners as well, along with the United States. But it's talking about how the EU is really behind this and pushing this. Now, we know Emmanuel Macron has been very vocal about he believes that he can help bring the peace agreement to the table as well. So it is interesting. He is the president of France, and he is somebody that we've watched before. But the EU, we know, like we talked about yesterday, is where the Antichrist will rise up from. Okay, so it's very interesting that this article is telling us the EU is a very big player in this situation. So anyway, it's very interesting. It says, it goes on to say that it is clear that this will require the replacement of a ultra-nationalism coalition in Israel, which is what they believe Netanyahu's coalition is, a naturalist coalition. Remember, we talked about that yesterday too. Nationalism as opposed to globalism. They don't want nationalism. They want everyone to think globally. And this article actually says we've got to get rid of Netanyahu and his nationalist coalition, and we got to bring in opposition to win this election in Parliament, and that it says that should be hastened by global adoption of a concrete plan to end the war and begin peace. Globalism versus nationalism. So very interesting that all those things are there. Also threw in an article that we won't go into, but I'll read you the title, but because of time we won't go completely into this. It says Barak, who is the former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, he says to hold the elections by June to adopt this two-state solution. He actually says we need to have new elections, get Netanyahu out of there, and get us a forward-thinking, globalist-minded parliament put up in there so that we can move to this peace agreement. So remember, he was the prime minister whenever Israel was talking about giving up the Temple Mount at one point. He was saying, hey, we'll give it up, basically, for peace is what he kind of wanted, and then he got ousted out. So anyway, just that's a quick reference to that article as well. But anyway, we've been talking about this for a long time.
Like forever, since our existence.
Yeah, I mean,
and we've always wrestled, Doug, which ones comes first, the war or peace?
That's exactly right.
And we're only wrestling with that because, I mean, it seems obvious that you're going to have war and then peace.
Yeah.
But there's been times when this peace treaty was just on the edge of tipping over, and we're going, well, the Bible doesn't say which one's first, so we can't sell out to one way or the other.
Right.
But boy, it sure looks like it would be war then peace until you got like a Trump's peace plan that's about to be signed, and then it's like, well, maybe not. So we've been talking about that since our existence, and here we are still discussing what's going to happen first, and the closer we get to it, the more, I guess, I would say we feel confident that it's going to be a war and then peace, and yet we look at this, and now it's kind of looking like war and peace almost at the exact same time. Yeah,
exactly. And this next article, this is why. And actually, do we have enough time for a video? Let's see. Yeah, we do. Okay, so let's look at this video from Fox News. It's going to set this story up for us, Vince.
Welcome back. A stunning new report from the Institute for Science and International Security issuing a, quote, extreme danger alert for Iran's development of a nuclear weapon. The first time they've issued this high of a rating in 30 years. The report warning, quote, Iran has more than enough of 60% enriched uranium to directly fashion a nuclear explosive. Joining us now is Director of the Center for National Defense at the Heritage Foundation, Robert Greenway. Robert, thank you for joining us. Thanks for bringing your expertise. I want to set the stage here for the people watching real quick. When we talk about 60% enriched uranium, the amount needed for, say, nuclear power is much lower. It's in almost the single digits. And so to go from 3 to 10% up to 60% shows obviously an intent to create a weapon. Where are we and what does this warning mean?
Well, thanks for having me, Joey. Look, we're 1 week away, essentially, from Iran having enough highly enriched uranium for a testable device, and within a month, they could have enough for 5. The report you cited indicates that Iran is essentially at a breakout time of 0. And so we may have very little warning before they're able to conduct the sufficient tests. And look, let's compare to where they began. At the time of the election in 2020, they were enriching, as you said, below 4%. They're now at 60, and we've actually tested them above 80% in a recent IAEA report. They had 500 centrifuges operational at the time of the election. They now have over 6,000. And so we're at a point in which we really need to consider the fact that Iran may become a nuclear power, and we've all stated that that's an unacceptable outcome.
Okay, if that's an unacceptable outcome and we're at day 0, is there anything other than bombing enrichment facilities and facilities in Iran that would prevent them at this point from becoming a nuclear power?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. Certainly, the further they go, the more difficult it gets. And it doesn't help that we've given them access to a tremendous amount of resources, over $100 billion. And they've just announced they're going to start construction on 4 new nuclear power plants, which cost about $20 billion. But to your point, I think we're getting to the threshold in which only military force may be required. It does not appear that they're being convinced, coerced, or encouraged to stop the enrichment. And it may be that nuclear force is the only thing required at a time when the region is already a tinderbox.
You said nuclear force. I think you meant military force. But on this topic,
yes.
If there is a nuclear Iran, put this in perspective of what we're seeing today. I mean, we're literally in a place where we have senators calling to bomb Iran because of other things happening. If there's a nuclear Iran, what does that mean for us?
Well, it means by default that Iran, 1, could use the weapon. They already have delivery systems which can range Europe. They certainly can range Israel, which they've stated their goal to destroy and wipe Israel off the map. Second, we know that they would have default control over the world's energy markets because of the proximity to the world's resources. So 30% of the world's energy could be under the control of Iran with a nuclear weapon. And then lastly, they're developing intercontinental ballistic missiles under the guise of a space program, which could ultimately range the United States. And they would be able to conduct terrorism under the impunity of this nuclear umbrella, which I think is their goal. And it may be that this campaign of terrorism is designed to distract so that they can complete this program.
That would make sense. It's such a great point to talk about the economic and energy consequences, not just war and destruction.
All right, so Vince, Iran is saying that they're ready to launch nuclear weapons if needed, and we know they want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. This whole war has been because they don't want Israel to have that peace agreement.
War or peace? Which one happens first? We shall find out. We're going to be getting to your calls on the other side of the break. You can join us by calling 877-END-TIME. We'll be right back after the break.
They that understand what is taking place will instruct many.
Except a man is born again, he can enter or see the kingdom of God.
I don't care what label you've been given or what label you've given yourself. You are essential. You still matter.
This is a journey, and when we get to the other side of that, that's where our prize is. That's where our reward is.
End time is not going anywhere.
Welcome back. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. Don't forget that YouTube has demonetized us. They're shadow banning our videos. Our videos will not display in search results and suggested videos for many people, definitely not new subscribers. So we need your help. You know, the only way we can assure that you're going to get this video, in fact, I'll add we have almost 300,000 followers on Facebook, and yet almost probably 99% of those people don't get notified when we go live with a video. So the best place I can assure you that you're going to get a notification, that you're going to be able to see the live, is on Endtime Plus. And as a response to YouTube demonetizing us without example, without strike, without warning, is that we are making Endtime Plus available for probably the cheapest that we've ever done before. Use code YouTube when you go to watch.endtime.com, and I believe you'll get Endtime Plus for just $5.97 per month, Doug. Somebody could go on there.
So good.
Use code YouTube. It's one word, by the way, not two.
Right.
And get Endtime Plus for $5.97 per month. They could watch all of Understanding the End Time, Dave's brand new series, 14 episodes. They could watch all of Revelation, 21 episodes that Irvin did right before he passed. Yeah. They could watch your Two Witnesses video, My Warn the Jews video, any video they want on Endtime Plus, and then cancel their subscription.
Yeah.
They could do that in a month if they wanted.
Yeah.
Hopefully they stick around. But there's thousands of hours of content available there for only $5.97 a month right now when you use code YouTube. So let's just kick it to YouTube.
Yeah.
Man, I would love to make them even more mad.
Sure.
Let's add 10,000 subscribers to Endtime Plus. Google and all those overlords are just trying to... They said that our content is harmful to viewers, Doug.
Well,
I don't know what you were saying when I was out sick, but I didn't think it was harmful to viewers.
I was reading the Bible, pretty much.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know, you can't say things like homosexuality is a sin, or that you shouldn't cheat on your wife, or things like that.
Yeah.
For some reason, Google doesn't like stuff like that.
I don't like it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Use code YouTube. Get it for $5.97. You ready to go to the phones, Doug?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we're going to start in Kentucky. Dolores is watching there. Dolores, welcome to the Endtime Show.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi, Dolores.
How are you?
We're better than we deserve.
Oh, well, me too. My question, I'm sure you've been asked this probably a zillion times, but do you feel like the church will go through the entire 7-year tribulation, especially the last 3.5-year Great Tribulation?
Yes, ma'am, we absolutely do.
And the 7-year tribulation.
Yeah, here's the thing. We don't believe that the first 3.5 years is tribulation at all. We believe that it's going to be a false peace that's being put forth, and that really the tribulation, the only tribulation is the Great Tribulation, because Scripture tells us over and over again that time will be for 3.5 years. So you get, Daniel, where he describes it as times and the dividing of time, and then we see in Revelation that it's known as 1,260 days or 42 months, and so all those equal 3.5 years. So that time period will be after that Abomination of Desolation we spoke of, but yes, ma'am, we do believe that the church will go through the entire thing, and we actually have some great videos on that. If you go to Endtime Plus, or if you go to endtime.com, you just put in the word rapture, and everything we've got will come up on that, and we'll explain why we believe that. But we've got up to, I think, about 24 or 25 different scriptures that prove a post-tribulation rapture. So, and you can go through those and look at that and see what you think after you read that. But we do believe that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you answering my question very much.
All right. Well, thank you, Dolores, and you have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. We're going to go to Texas now. Jesse's watching there. Jesse, welcome to the Endtime Show.
How are you doing today? You guys hear me?
Jesse, yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you, but barely.
Awesome. How are you guys doing?
We can barely hear you, though, Jesse. Can you speak up a bit?
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second.
Sounds like he's driving, maybe.
Maybe.
You guys hear me now?
We can hear you now, Jesse. Thank you.
Perfect. No, I just kind of wanted to come in and talk within y'all's discussion over Israel and as far as the Palestinians and things like that, kind of seeing Javier Milei, who is and you guys know who Javier Milei is, correct?
Indeed, from Argentina.
President of Argentina. Yeah, so he is a Catholic, and he I believe is of Jewish descent, but he just recently went to Israel, and he was basically pushing for the third Jewish temple to be put up.
Yes.
And he was
my question
moved
is
with extreme emotion at the Western Wall.
Yeah, extreme emotion is what really gets me there. So I have kind of wondered, and listening, it's more so as far as...
Are you about to ask us Vince's favorite question?
I'm hoping so. Come on, Jesse. You can do it.
No, I'm sorry, but my question is I feel more Americans and more Christians need to know what's going on than more so Jews know what's going on, because I think we are being told one thing of what's actually going on in the Middle East, and whenever everybody is for a Palestinian state but Israel, it makes you really wonder.
So you want us to do a campaign called Warn the Americans?
Have I?
No, you're wanting us to, it sounds like.
Yes, sir.
You know, we definitely agree that Americans need to know what's going on. Our specific reason for targeting the Jews there is, one, they don't read the New Testament, so they don't know what Matthew 24 says, and it specifically mentions that if you live in that area, you need to get out of there. So we certainly aren't just targeting the Jews, as you know, but we agree. We're trying to tell all the Americans we can, so that's part of what we're doing every single day.
And, you know, Jesse, I understand, too, you know, what you're saying, that, I mean, as Christians, we shouldn't be behind anybody that's trying to make Israel give up land for peace. And so we understand that. But it is in prophecy. And so that's why we talk about it. That's why we're saying we're going to warn the Jews, because it's in God's prophecy. So we know it's going to come to pass, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. So even though our government is part of this two-state solution, and we know we shouldn't be, that's something, you know, that the Americans here, we need to get people behind the movement of what's happening there. Of course, you know, we've had this huge movement of the people that are on the side of Hamas and the Palestinian movement here within this country, and people have been protesting and all those things. There's a lot of people that don't understand the dynamics of what's in the Bible, nor do they really even care what's in the Bible. A lot of people don't believe the Bible is even true, and so they're not believing that we should be standing with Israel, and that's where the blessings come from and not the curses. And so you're right, there's a lot of education that needs to go on there, but this is prophetic, and we know it is going to take place.
Absolutely. And it's just more so trying to reach more of our brothers and sisters to reach into Scripture so they can discern it and understand.
Amen.
Yes, sir. But, yes, I just wanted to call in and kind of just get that out. But, of course, it's always good listening to you guys.
Well, thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse. If you're ever in the Dallas area, swing by. We'd love to meet you. We always love when visitors come by and check out the show. And some people get to even watch from in the studio, Doug.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Come by sometime, Jesse. We'd love to meet you. I thought he was going to ask if President Milei was the Antichrist.
I thought he was, too.
I was salivating over here, Doug. I love that question.
Well, it's so funny because you sent me the article over the weekend on that when I was hunting, and I sent you a response back. What, you think he might be the Antichrist? And you said, in Argentina? And I said, well, that's always your question. So.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll do a show on that one day, Doug.
Maybe.
You never know. All right, we're going to go to Tennessee now. John's watching there. John, welcome to the Endtime Show.
Well, good afternoon, my friends. How are you?
We're well. How are you,
John?
our friend?
Doing great, Vince. I am sorry to hear that your lovely family is suffering from that flu, and
thank you.
They're in our prayers. Hopefully everything comes around and gets better shortly.
Appreciate it.
Vince, I think you sold Into the Age Plus a little short. I'm not sure a person could go through everything in there in only a month.
Well, maybe somebody could try.
An amazing amount of information and teaching stuff in there. So I'm not sure you could do it in a month, but people can try.
Hey, they'd have to be real crazy and just go like almost 24/7.
Yeah,
which is part of the thing, John.
You'd have to be eating from a TV tray in front of the TV watching it.
Well, that's what's part of it's only $5.97 a month right now for all
absolutely.
that content.
That's almost free.
Per month. Okay.
Anybody that's interested in this at all should be signed on to End of the Age Plus. I'm watching on it now. So, and I've been on it since I think the first week you had it up.
Wow.
Nice.
You are an OG, John, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Did you see the video of the branded steak? Thank you to your Brandon iron that you sent.
I saw that indeed. I was watching that, and it looked like the guy who did it had some branding experience. You ever?
No doubt. I'm wondering if they.
Anybody, Doug?
I have not ever had to brand a calf, so that was my first time at branding. But thank you.
Well, I don't know why the shot of your ankle didn't make the video, Doug.
Why do you say that?
Actually, I was expecting to see a catch rope lariat on that steak when he branded it.
Oh, man. Well, we enjoyed this weekend. We needed that weekend, and we absolutely enjoyed being able to get that branding iron out and at least put a brand on one of those good old backyard butcher steaks. We really enjoyed it. And, I mean, there may be some Endtime Plus exclusive come out of that weekend. We'll just have to wait and see how all that goes.
No, Doug, let's just tell everybody.
Oh, man.
You and Dave recorded some videos while you were out there.
We did, yeah.
And there's some content coming in Endtime Plus with you and Dave in camo. It looks like Duck Dynasty kind of.
Yeah, we're out there in our hunting clothes and sitting around a campfire and talking. So hopefully we'll get that out. It'll be on Endtime Plus, and it'll be an exclusive, and there may be more of that coming your way. So stay tuned.
Good. By the way, speaking about the backyard meat here, Laura and I just unopened and stuck in the freezer our first order today.
Wonderful.
All right.
It arrived FedEx today.
Awesome.
So we'll give you a report on what we actually think of this.
All right.
Can't wait.
Good coming out of the box.
Can't wait.
We appreciate
I like
it.
meat, so it's all going to be good.
Well, John, we're running out of time. We've been yapping. Do you have a comment or question about today's show?
Actually, yes. No, we're not going into the last 7 years as of right now, and until somebody signs that peace treaty and puts it together, we're not going to.
Yeah.
But I did see that you've got an old photograph of Solomon's Temple from, what was that, an aerial photograph stuck in there?
Yeah, we did.
It's of the Temple Mount. Of course, the Dome of the Rock is there, and you see Jerusalem. And
oh, yeah. Laura wants to know if that's a swimming pool on top of the temple in the picture there.
No, actually, we got that it's actually from the Jewish Museum there in Israel. There is a huge replica that is built of the old city of David and the temple and everything there, and it's beautiful. If you ever go there and see it, the whole thing is about the size of this studio we're standing in, so it's huge. And it's.
You thought about going this last trip?
I don't think we're going to.
Probably would have been there, except I cannot fly international with my order block.
Yeah.
Well, John, thanks so much for your call. As you can hear, we are out of time. Doug, do you have anything to say before we got to wrap it up?
Well, folks, it's looking like pieces are falling together. And, man, if you do not know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, if you've not been biblically born again, like it says in the Bible, then please contact us or go to Endtime/Reborn.
Endtime.com/reborn to make sure you've been born again like the disciples described it and did it in the book of Acts. We'll be right back here tomorrow for Open Line Friday. Don't miss it. Don't forget to go to watch.endtime.com. Use code YouTube to get it for $5.97 a month. And go to endtime.com for thousands of hours of content that's totally free because of incredible partners like you. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. God bless.